Hello and welcome to Applied Business Statistics course. In this session, we are going to describe the third topic, which is hypothesis testing. We mentioned earlier that the main topics in statistical inference are estimation and hypothesis, and the second one is hypothesis testing. In this session, we are going to deal with the hypothesis testing topic. So sometimes we are not interested in the problem of estimation. We are not interested to know the value of the unknown parameter. We are not interested to estimate that value, but we rather are interested to to examine a hypothesis to test whether this hypothesis is true or not. It could be a belief about something related to the parameter, or it could be a theorem or whatever, and you are not sure about it. So, in order to be sure whether this hypothesis is true or not, we collect a sample observation from that society, and uh, using that sample observation, we look for an evidence to support this hypothesis or against that hypothesis. We want to see if the sample observation support this hypothesis or against this hypothesis. For example, if we believe that male accountants gain more than female accountants on average, that is a hypothesis. In order to check that hypothesis, we want to test it. So we draw a sample of accountants, males and females, and see how much they gain each sample from both, and collect this information and calculate the average of the male account, the average wage or earnings of that of female accountants and male accountants, and compare them using some test statistic or some measurable function, so in order to see whether this belief is true or not. Another example is to see whether, for example, male accountants gain greater than some value, for example, $1,000 a month. So if we believe that, if we have a belief or theorem or whatever, we saying that male accountants gain average monthly salary more than $1,000, and we want to test that hypothesis, we collect sample of male accountants and calculate the average monthly salary for these accountants, and from that average we see if we have an evidence to support that hypothesis or against that hypothesis. For another example here is a more applied example, is that in a cereal packaging process, cereal is some type of children's food for children. In a cereal packaging process, the amount of cereal in a box is supposed to be normally distributed with a mean of 750 grams and a standard deviation of 20 grams. The mean is written on the cereal box. On the box itself, it is written the average is or the weight is 750 grams, and this is not necessarily exact to be exactly 750. It can be 750 to 745 or whatever. This is an average usually. But in general, the average for the whole boxes which is produced by this process should be 750. So we have 750 is the mu. This should be the average of the whole population, which is mu 750, and we have also the sigma standard deviation of the whole population as 20. So the plant manager, in order to check whether the packaging machine is working according to specification or not, we randomly selects a sample of 25 boxes. We have a sample of n equals 25 boxes and calculated the average, of course. So, and the mean wage of this sample is found to be, if the mean wage of this sample is found to be 740 grams. So that's the sample mean or the sample average, which is X bar, 745. Should the packaging machine be closed down for adjustment? If we found the average, the sample mean or the sample average X bar is 741, which is not 750. Should we close the packaging machine or not? That's important question to ask. The manager should close down or should try to repair the packaging machine if it is significantly far from 745. But if that is random value, the average could be more or less than the 750 for the sample average, as we mentioned. The sample mean is not usually the same as the population mean. It could be less or could be more. But how far or how far is it less and how far it is more, that's important for us. So the packaging machine should be closed down if the actual average net weight of all boxes is different from 750 grams. If the population mean is actually different from 750 grams, which is the contents weight printed on each box. So the average or the overall average or the population average or the population mean should be exactly 750, or we should not find an evidence against this assumption, which is the actual population mean is 750. Nobody can find an evidence against this assumption, which is not good for the company to make available an evidence for anyone to find the population mean is less than 750, which is the amount written on each box. The sample mean is certainly smaller than 750 grams. It's okay. The sample mean can be smaller or greater than 750. That's okay for us. However, since X bar might change from sample to sample, this is not an overwhelming piece of evidence. Alone is not overwhelming piece of evidence. It's not a good evidence to support that to support the assumptions that the overall mean or the population mean of all boxes is different or the same as 750. Right? Now, is the real mean, that's the most important question for testing hypothesis problem. Is the real mean different from 750? having all this information, or this evidence, all this information, sample size, sample mean, sample standard deviation or population standard deviation, all this value, all this information, does it support the hypothesis that the mu is different from 750 or not? That's the real hypothesis testing problem. If mu were really 750, the sampling distribution of X bar would be normal and have mean of 750. That theory which we discussed in the previous or the first topic, the sampling distribution for the sample mean. So if mu was really 750, then the sampling distribution of X bar for n equals 25 would be normal distributed and have mean 750. And we can calculate that probability that X bar comes between 742.2 and 757.8, that's equal 95%. That means with 95 confidence, we can say that X bar lies between those two values, this and this. So with 95 confidence, the sample mean should be between these two values, right? We would expect 95% of sample means to be within this confidence limit, right? Like that. Here, so here 75% confidence, 95 values should come between all these, but we have it here 745. It is outside this region, outside this confidence region. Our value is outside this confidence region. So the sample mean of 741 is not within the confidence region or the confidence limit, 95 confidence limit. So this means that either mu is 750 with 5% chance of X bar being outside 95%, so it is rarely to be 750, only 5% chance of being outside that region, or mu is actually not 750, which is most likely. It's more likely to be, thus the conclusion of that case is mu is not 750, because 95% of all sample means should be within that range, and 5% only chance of being outside that range. So this comes in the 5% chance, which we can consider it an error. That means that it's more likely that mu is not equal to 750. So we can say that since 741 is significantly different from 750, this sample has been taken from another population, not from the same population which has a mean of 750. So it is from another population whose mean is not 750. In other words, the machine is not filling 750 grams, it is filling less than that. So, of course, there is a 5% chance that we may be making an error in making this conclusion. We have a conclusion with small probability, which is 5% probability that our conclusion is an error. 95% true and 95% confidence, and 5% error. So we accept that. Now, if we are specific about the population mean, so in the last topic we discussed the confidence interval for the mean, and now this session we are going to discuss testing the hypothesis around the mean. The usual testing hypothesis problem goes into 6 different steps. In order to go through the testing hypothesis problem or to test any hypothesis, we must go through 6 different steps, 6 consecutive steps. So we must talk about each step one by one. First, we should mention these 6 steps and then discuss each one and explain each one one by one. So the 6 steps are: set up the null and alternative hypothesis. That's the first step of discussing the testing hypothesis problems. The second step is to determine the test statistic and its sampling distribution. Third step is to specify the significance level. Fourth step is to define the decision rule. Fifth step is to take a sample and calculate the value of the test statistic. The last and sixth step is to make a statistical decision and draw. Now we want to discuss the first step, which is set up the null and alternative hypothesis. In any testing hypothesis question or hypothesis testing problem, we usually have 2 hypotheses. One of them, either of them must be true and the other is false. One of them must be false. We write the hypothesis in order to be always we have one true and the other is false. So one of them we call it null hypothesis and denote it by H naught. The null hypothesis, and we denote it by H naught. And the second, we call it alternative hypothesis because it is alternative to the null hypothesis, and we denote it by HA. The test procedure is based on the assumption that this statement is true. All the test procedures after that must be on the assumption that, or based on the fact that the null hypothesis is true. Then the alternative hypothesis is the logical alternative of H naught that is accepted when the sample provides significant evidence against H naught. If there is evidence against H naught, that means H naught is false, then we accept the alternative hypothesis. Right? And usually H naught involves the equal sign. H naught equal the equal sign. The null hypothesis involves the equal sign here. Equal sign, not in the alternative hypothesis. Like if we say H naught mu equals mu naught, then alternative should not involve the equal sign. It can be not equal H naught mu naught, or mu is greater than mu naught, or mu is less than mu naught. That's the alternative hypothesis. It's never involve the equal sign, right? So H naught must be opposite of H naught and be what we intend to prove. What's the meaning of that? The assumption which we are interested in proving, in showing an evidence to support it, we put it in the null hypothesis and the alternative hypothesis, because we want to have evidence to support this. We want to prove that, so we put it in the alternative hypothesis. Like the person or thief or whatever in the court. There is accused person. We say that this person is guilty if we have evidence against him, and he is not guilty if he is if there is no evidence, even if he is the thief or killer or whatever. We cannot prove that he is not guilty, but we can prove that this is guilty, because if we have evidence against him, if we have evidence against him or recognition from him, then we prove that he is guilty. So to prove that guilty, the court should find an evidence against him. If the court did not find an evidence against him, he is put free then, right? And here is the same. If we found an evidence against the null hypothesis, then the alternative hypothesis is true. We accept the alternative hypothesis. Because we reject the H0, the null hypothesis, but we never accept the null hypothesis. We reject it or not reject it. We do not reject it because we do not find enough evidence to reject it. Like the guilty, like the accused person in the court, he can be guilty because there is evidence against him, or not guilty because you would not find evidence against him, and that's the same as the null hypothesis. Remember that always the null hypothesis is like the accused person in the court. If there is significant sample evidence against H0, we reject it in favor of HA. However, when there is not enough evidence to infer that H0 is not true, we do not reject it, but we do not accept it either. For this, we say we cannot reject, we do not find an evidence or any evidence to reject the null hypothesis. Now, an example to show that how we put down the null and alternative hypothesis. At Sydney University, the historical mean aggregate score of entering students has been 420 with a standard deviation of 84. A sample of 200 students in this year's intake shows a sample mean score of 435. Concludes at the 5% level of significance that the mean HC aggregate score for this year's intake is different from 420. We only want to set up the null and alternative hypothesis for this example. So we have the historical mu, which is here 420, and we have sigma. That's mu is the population mean, and sigma, which is the population standard deviation, is 45, and we have n equals 200, and x bar here is 435. So we want to set up the null and alternative hypothesis. We say that H0, the null hypothesis, we mentioned that always the equal sign is in the null hypothesis. So mu is equal to 420, which we want to prove. And the alternative hypothesis, mu is not, the question does not mention greater or less. So this is different from 420, which we want to prove that mu not equal 420. So that's the alternative hypothesis, right? So this is the first step for testing hypothesis, is to set up the null and alternative hypothesis. If we understand this step, then we move up to the second step, which determines the test statistic and its sampling distribution, which is the statistic is the function for in which we could put the data in order to get like something to weight whether this hypothesis is true or not. This is the function which absorb all the information from the sample, right? So that we call it statistics. So it's function of the data, the sample observations, right? So we have for test statistic or for the null hypothesis, there is a test statistic. So the test statistic is the sample statistic function from the sample upon which we decide to reject or not reject the null hypothesis. It's a function we substitute this sample observation in it to see whether the null hypothesis or is it true or not. Right? Testing the population parameter, the test statistic is derived from the point estimator of the parameter to be tested. So the test statistic is usually a function of also the point estimator, of the parameter, the one which we estimate the parameter itself. We build on it to establish the test statistic, right? And our decision is based on the sampling distribution of this statistic, assuming that H naught is correct. On the assumption that H naught is correct, we find the sampling distribution for the test statistic. It's no test statistic without its sampling distribution known. So we must define the function itself and its the distribution, sampling distribution, in order to say we have test statistic for this assumption, for this null assumption. Right, so we want to determine the test statistic and sampling distribution in the second step. And usually for each null hypothesis, there is a test statistic and sampling distribution. And we will study each null hypothesis one by one later. Right? If X bar is normally distributed, then the test statistic for testing mu is in this case either Z, which equals X bar minus mu naught over sigma X bar if sigma is known, and that follow the normal distribution. So this is the sampling distribution of this function is the normal standard normal distribution. So this is the statistic for this case. There is another case in which sigma is not known. In this case, we use t with n minus 1 degrees of freedom. So t equals x bar minus mu naught over s x bar. So because sigma is not known, we estimate it using s. So that's the population sigma, and that's the sample standard deviation. If because sigma is not known, then where mu denotes the hypothetical mu naught denotes the hypothetical value of mu, i.e., in other words, mu under H naught. What is the value of mu under H naught, which you call it mu naught in this case? Granted that H naught is true, if it's not H naught is true, then Z is the standard normal random variable, while T is a student's T distribution with n minus 1 degrees of freedom. The value of this function have standard normal, and this function has the student's distribution within degrees of freedom. Example 2, since in the previous example, example 1, is greater than or equal to 200, which is greater than 30, the data are normal, and since sigma is given, the test statistic in this case Z, which based on this statistic, because sigma is known and n is large. One of them is enough to say that we use this. So usually we use the standard normal distribution either when sigma is known or n is so large, right? So we by this we define the statistic and its distribution. The third point specifies the significance level, right? Each note is either true or false, right? Usually, nothing, no other choices. Either true, the each note is, or false. And at the end of the procedure, we either reject or maintain it. Each note. So either we reject it or maintain it. And any decision we take must contain an error. However, our decision based on this assumption evidence might be incorrect because any decision will have an error. So, although there are four possibilities, from where comes this error? Because in practice, usually we have each note either true or each note false. But our decision will be to maintain each note or not reject it, or to reject each note. If each note is true and we do not reject it, then the decision is correct. And each note is false and we did not reject it, then the decision is incorrect. We have an error here because each note is false and we did not reject it. We should reject each note if it is false. There is an error here. And if each note is true and we reject it, then again we have an error. Incorrect decision. The decision is incorrect. But if each note is false and we reject it, then that's good. There is no error. So two cases where we have no error. Correct decision. We have a correct decision. And two cases where we have incorrect decision. We fall in an error. Incorrect decision. Then this incorrect decision, the probability of falling in this incorrect decision, we call it type 1 error, which is rejecting each note while it is true. And the probability of falling in this error, we call it type 2 error, which is non-rejecting a false each note, which is we maintain, do not reject each note when it is false or while it is false. This is an error. We call this error type 1 error and this error type 2 error. So non-rejection of is false. False each note is type 2 error. And rejecting a true each note is type 1 error. This, or the probability of falling in type 1 error, we call it alpha and significance level. Right? And the probability of falling in type 2 error, we call it beta. We call it beta. Type 2 and falling in type 2 error, we call it beta. That's a power. A power. If the hypothesis, null hypothesis is false, then we reject it. That's a power. Good. That's good. So we call it power of this. The test which rejects each note while it is false, we say it is powerful test, a powerful test. So we reject each note. If we reject each note while it is false, it is good. And the probability of rejecting each note while it is false is called beta, right? So the probability of type 1 error is alpha. So alpha is called significance level. So any statistic must be based on these two errors. We must minimize both errors in order to have a good test statistic. But unfortunately, we cannot minimize the probability of falling in both errors. So usually we fix one error, we have it fixed with one value and try to minimize the other probability of falling in that error. And we usually fix type 1 error by the value of alpha. We give it 5%, 10%, 1%, fix it, and find the test statistics which minimize the probability of falling in error, and which is falling in the second type error, type 2 error. So the this error can be minimized by mathematical statistics. We are not interested in details here, but we usually find the test statistic which minimize that type of error, which type 2 error, with uh, type 1 error, which is, I mean, with fixed alpha, or with fixed, we call it significance level. So usually we fix the significance level and try to minimize the type 2 error by the choice of the test statistic. And usually we use mathematical statistics in order to find this, and it's not our problem now. But we give you the test statistic which minimize the second type 2 error, and to have the most powerful test statistic, right? So usually in specifying the significance level, we should specify the type 1 error and leave that to type 2 error for the mathematical statistics. So type 1 error is alpha, which usually is fixed on either 5% or 1% or 10% or whatever. We will talk about the next three steps in the next session. For this, we stop here and see you in the next session. Bye bye.